we become prejudiced ourselves. All right. And here is the writing by a man, Optimism in an Age of Peril by Stanley E. Sayers. One of the significant and obvious reasons the unbeliever remains an unbeliever is that he likes it that way. His heart is strongly bent against evidence and toward unbelief. It is the heart condition. Jesus gave us the parable of the sower. There were 4 kinds of soil. The soil represents the heart of man. The first kind of soil is the soil that is called wayside soil. When the sower threw his seed, the seed fell on the wayside. This wayside soil is a ground where the farmers walk on. It is not part of the field used for cultivation, where the earth is soft. He walked on that footpath until it becomes hard. So when the seed fell on the wayside, it will not germinate. That ground is too hard. And that represents a condition of the heart of man, where the heart is very, very hardened. When you preach the gospel to them, they're not interested to hear. All right. So there are people who are biased towards God, and they want it that way. They choose to keep it that way. Here's an example of Charles Darwin. His bias. Okay. When we mention Charles Darwin, of course, you can identify with who he is very easily. His theory of evolution is taught in school, both in high school and in tertiary education in university. He was the one who wrote The Origin of Species. He said this. All right, this was related by his son, Francis Darwin, who wrote the book about his father. Francis Darwin, his son, is now talking about his father. The father is speaking. When thus reflecting, I feel compelled to look to a first cause having an intelligent mind in some degree analogous to that of men. And I deserve to be called a theist. Okay, so what he's saying is the first cause is like this, right? Where did the chicken come from? The chicken come from an egg, right? Where did the egg come from? This egg come from a chicken. Where does this chicken come from? It comes from an egg. Where did the egg come from? It comes from a chicken, right? So it keeps on going and going and going, and finally it has to stop somewhere. It cannot continue forever infinitely. It has to stop somewhere, and that somewhere, the beginning, is called the first cause. Someone caused that chicken to come into existence, and that first cause is God. So he's saying, although he espoused the theory of evolution, he's saying that I am compelled, I am pushed to a corner to believe that there is a first cause, someone who started this. Evolution goes all the way back to a first organism, the simple cell amoeba. The simple cell, simple organism. This organism develops over the millions of years to become multi-cell, more complex organism, a living being, and which later on became man. All right. If you go all the way back, where did this first cell come from? The first simple cell that evolved into a human being. Where did it come from? He said, I am compelled to accept that there must be a first cause. So therefore, he said, you should call me a theist. What is a theist? A theist is a person who believes in a God, a personal God. We are all theists. We believe in a personal God. But he said, this conclusion was strong in my mind about the time as far as I can remember when I wrote The Origin of Species. Although his feeling was there must be a first cause. But when he wrote The Origin of Species, he was espousing the theory of evolution. So why did he do what he did? Bias, isn't it? He was compelled to accept that there was a first cause, and yet he promoted Darwinism, the theory of evolution, because of bias. Let's look at this writing. If there's a God, why are there atheists? This man wrote a book, and this is what he said. The Christian God is utterly repugnant to him, because God represents the threat of threats to man's own desire and ambition. The will of God is on a collision course with the will of man. Why do people become believers in evolution? Because evolution, if you are an evolutionist, if you believe in the theory of evolution, it will mean that you do not believe in a God. Because Evolution has got nothing to do with God. Everything came by itself, on its own. There is no God involved. So why do people find the theory of evolution more attractive? It's because they don't want to be they don't want to subject themselves to a God. If they believe in a God, by implication, it means they have to do what does God wants them to do, isn't it? Does God want them to be holy? Does God want them to go to church? Does God want them to pray? Does God want them to study the Bible? You see, they don't want to live that kind of life. They want to do whatever they want to do. It's free. They choose to live their life the way they want. So it's a bias against God. Men refuse to acknowledge God. Romans 1:20, the invisible things of Him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even His eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse, right? What is being said here is that you can look at the creation of the world and you can see God's invisible attributes. You can look at the stars, the moon, the sun, the earth, the hills, the mountain, and the ocean. You can see God's invisible attribute. What is that? When they knew God, they glorified Him not as God, neither were thankful, became vain in their heart. You can see God's invisible attribute. One of His invisible attributes is that He is almighty. He created all this. We're going to talk about that in one of our lessons, which is on the existence of God. Is there a God? Are there evidences that indicate to us that a God exists? All right. So men see this as words of God, and he can naturally accept that there must be a creator, but yet he chose to say, no, I don't believe it. Why? He's biased. He is prejudiced. All right. The second reason, parents and upbringing. What do we mean by that? Why is a person an unbeliever? Why does he choose to be a believer in evolution? It's due to upbringing, and it's due to teachings and the influence of the parent. Romans 14 verse 7, none of us liveth to himself, and no man died to himself. That's a verse that suggests to us that no individual can live his life in a vacuum. Whatever you do, your words, your deeds, your influence are on others. If it is not a good influence, then it will be a bad influence. But no man can live unto himself. Whatever he does, he affects others. No man is an island, and the greatest of all influence is the parents of the child. When children are born, their mind are like a sponge. You know what a sponge is, right? Dry and light. You dip that sponge in water, in a few minutes you lift it up, the sponge is heavy. Why is it heavy? It has soaked in all the water and is filled with water now. Slates. My time, those of you who are about my age or older, when we went to school, we had slate that we used to write on the slate, like the blackboard that you may have. But the younger generation, probably by the time that you went to school, you didn't have to do that. But we would write on those slates that will make marks like a blackboard. So the children, when they are born, their mind is like a slate. What do you want to write in their mind? That depends on what the parents want to teach them, isn't it? All right. So the parents have the greatest opportunity to write in the minds of the children an empty slates. You want to influence them to be atheists? They will be atheists. You want to influence them to be believers in God? They will be believers in God. So look at it. Much atheism has the ground prepared for it in the disillusionment with a parent which has arisen in the child. This is a man. He's not writing a religious book. He just said that when people grow up, why is it that they don't believe in a God? They are disillusioned. Why are they disillusioned? It's because of the experience that they have with their children. They have seen their parents, how they live their life. Disbelief in life, skepticism about humanity, the denial of God. All of this has been seen and experienced by them as they were growing up. They see this in their parents. And by the time they're grown up, they have become atheists because of their parents' influence. Life has scared much people early and make them unwilling to believe either in man or in God. So for a lot of people who grow up to become atheists, it's because of the difficulty that they have experienced and seen in life, and especially so the influence that have been exerted on them by their parents. Look at this man, a very well-known paleontologist. He is a Marxist, a communist, and an atheist. You just have to Google his name. He's a well-known scientist. All right, his face appears in a lot of magazines like Newsweek and so on. Okay, and paleontology is the study of fossils. You look at the rocks found in the ground. You look at a rock and you say, this rock is 30 million years old. And if you find a fossil buried together with this layer of rock, you say this layer of rock was formed during the time of the dinosaurs, for example. That's what a paleontologist is, all right? Very famous. But look at his life, right? In this book, Gould and Eldridge, all right? The two authors, he and someone else. The other person is writing. The other person is saying about Gould, Stephen Jay Gould. He said, it may also not be irrelevant to our personal preferences that one of us learn his Marxism literally at his daddy's knee. So he's referring to this man, Stephen Jay Gould. How did he end up becoming a Marxist and an atheist when he was still a baby, sitting on his father's knee? His father was already teaching him about Marxism, about communism. And today, as he grows up to be an adult, he's already an atheist. So this is what we mean by the influence of parents. Thank you. This is already 30 minutes. I have asked Sister Chin, my wife, Huifan, to signal to me at the end of 30 minutes so that we will break that silence and we'll break that boredom, all right? So that you will be able to continue. So we'll take a short rest. I'd like for you to all to stand, please. Stand and stretch yourself, all right? And continue with our lesson, all right? We have, as you can see, we only covered the second point. I've got 6 more. All right. But what I want to do is not so much about how much material we're going to cover, but by whatever we can cover, I'd like for you to follow and understand what has been said. That is more important. All right? That's more important. Some of the things that we studied at Forces College also, for example, I'm teaching the book of Acts, 28 chapters. All right? And if we cannot finish 28 chapters, if we can finish 20 chapters or 25 chapters, that would be good enough for the class. It's more important for them to study and know the 25 chapters than to rush to the 28 and in the end, they didn't know what's all the 28 chapters all about, right? It's the substance that we want to know. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? We're talking about the causes of unbelief. Why is it that people do not believe what they believe? We've already looked at 2. Number one, let's see if you remember. Number 1, bias towards God, prejudice towards God. Number 2, parental influence and upbringing, isn't it? Here's a man. He was already taught Marxism, communism, when he was sitting on his father's knee. Can you imagine how young he was? What did we say earlier? We said earlier about the influence of parents on their children, isn't it? How children, when they're born, their mind is like a sponge, right? If the sponge is ready to take in anything, whatever you teach the child will believe. Children are so trusting of their parents, isn't it? One of these days you're going to see that when you have your own child, right? You let a child stand on a table when he's a toddler, and you can say to your son, and you say, "Jump, Andy." He will jump. He will jump. You know why? He trusts his father. He knows his father will catch him. He has that great trust in the father. And so whatever is it you're doing to the child, you are reinforcing it. If you are a good father, of course you will teach him good stuff. And if you are an atheist, you will teach him atheism. So that's the influence. Okay, let's see what else. So it may also not be, okay, this Stephen Jay Gould later on wrote this book that's called punctuated equilibrium. All right. Here is a verse from the Bible where fathers are given that obligation, all right, to bring up children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. What is the nurture? What do you nurture? You nurture a plant, for example. What do you do to the plant? You make sure the plant has sunlight, the plant has got water, the plant has got nutrients, soil and earth, and that the leaves that have wilted are plucked and thrown away. That's the process of nurturing the plant. And some people go to the other extreme of talking to their plant. How are you today, honey? Are you feeling all right? Oh, you poor thing, the strong sunlight is hurting you, right? I'll move you a little bit. That's another extreme. But they're nurturing the plant. They're nurturing the plant. But we are to nurture our children. But how do we nurture our children? In the admonition that is of the Lord, the Lord's way. That means it comes from the Word of God. Some people are nurturing their children not of the Lord. They're bringing up the children according to the world. The world's way. Like what? If the boy slaps you, you slap him back. That's the way of the world. All right? That is just an example. But you see how important fathers are in bringing up the children, to train them up properly. All right? So that they will love the Lord as they grow up. Nurture, education, training, instruction, and all of that. Next, we want to look at education. There are schools everywhere teaching evolution, all right? And evolution disagrees with the Bible. The Bible is about creation. So, evolution teaches that the child is not an individual created in God's image. Evolution teaches that the child is actually the result of millions of years of evolution, right? He is an animal. He's the same as the animals of the world, and therefore he should be trained as an animal, right? Children's books on evolution everywhere, not just in the United States, but here in parts of Asia as well, right? Children's book again, even this little changes, very subtle way. Animated form, little cartoons, they are promoting evolution. It's being taught to children of all ages. And one side, on the left, is creation. They are animals that's created. Evolution is that we all descended from lower form of animal. Let's look at the writing of this man called Ipoh. Wilson, right? This is what is written in Wikipedia about this man. Let's just take a look at who he is. All right, he is a biologist, Harvard University, okay, and world's leading authority in the study of ants. All right, not just a scientist, but a scientist from Harvard. So somebody in authority. Let's say what he said. What are we talking about? We're talking about education, right? Education causes a person to be an unbeliever. He said, like many people in Alabama, I was a born-again Christian. When I was 15, I entered the Southern Baptist Church with great fervor and interest in the fundamentalist religion. 15 years old, he went to church. He wanted to preach the gospel. I left at 17, and when I got to the University of Alabama and heard about evolutionary theory, and after which I am what I am now. He went to university to study to become an evolutionary. It is said that you have to go to university to become an atheist. That people on their own, in their natural experiences in life, generally are not atheists. They believe that there is a God. But they have to go to school, to colleges and university to learn that there is no God. Everything happened as a result of evolution. So he went to university, he became an evolutionist, and today he is an expert. He's no longer a believer. Evolution taught us facts. Evolution is what is taught in the school. At least 2, and in some cases 3 or 4 generations have used the same textbooks presented as proven fact. The teachers who for the most part learn of it in truth pass it on as truth. The teachers are taught that this is true. Evolution is true.